not too many people better than my next guest to talk college football with. He does a great job for CBS Sports. He had over 100 sacks in his NFL career, should be in the Hall of Fame, but for some reason they don't give him any of that love. And he's a Florida Gator, so I know he's got to be a little bit happy after last week. That's Kevin Carter. Casey, what's happening?
Doing well. Definitely happy after Gators win. It's nice to have some of the fans that were killing me on social media after I went on this rant on my story and everything else saying,
Wait, what happened? You were defending Billy Napier and the Gators?
Don't fire Billy Napier after
week
2. It wasn't about.
I'm kidding.
But see, that's the thing. It's like I like Billy Napier as a person.
Okay.
He has my vote as a person, as the right person to get the job done. But in the dynamics and the complexity of college football, with the need to win right now and turn a program around with that big brand. If Gator fans aren't relevant in the national championship picture every year, then they think something's wrong. And I'm like, you're living in a fantasy world. We're so far away from that. We have to stick with someone to build and start the process of reconstructing, Florida greatness. And I said, you're going to lose half your team. You're basically saying that this year is a wash. I said, look, I've been there with those kids over the summer. Billy Napier let me kind of be a fly on the wall and have carte blanche, just kind of walk around and roam and see whatever I wanted to see. And I was like, man, you guys are going in the right direction. Like, he's doing this wholesome in a right way. He's recruiting great kids, people of character. I like everything about what he's doing.
The one hot name that everyone speculated for that job, I don't know if he would have taken it or not, was Lane Kiffin. Would you rather have, if Lane Kiffin said, I want to be the next coach of the Gators, would you rather hire Lane Kiffin or run it back with Billy Napier?
That's a hard sell. Lane Kiffin is one of the best play callers, I think, in college football. I think Jackson Dart is a good quarterback, but with a DJ Lagway, dare I say, man, the magic that he could create. They've got good receivers. I mean, like Shamir DK, he's leaving, but like you got Elijah Badger, you got Aiden Mizell. I mean, you've got some dudes. You got a young running back in Jaden Ball that's having a great year. Montrell Johnson's still there. I mean, and your defense is so improved from a year ago. I mean, all that said, I know I'm avoiding the question.
Yeah, that's his way of saying, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say
in
Lane
a perfect world, I would say Lane Kiffin, just by reputation, pedigree, and unfortunately, splash.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And here's the thing. I looked at that job, and I don't think you just keep a guy because you go, oh, I'm struggling to find who the next guy would be. But the one hot name was Lane Kiffin, and Lane likes the drama. They could have fired Napier. Lane could have gave him a little bit of some mixed signals, and then he leaves him at the altar. And then who do you go after that? That's why I thought it was important because it's one thing for the AD to come on out, Kevin Carter, and say, hey, we're keeping him.
Right.
Because you knew what the schedule was going to be, and I thought they were going to get bludgeoned in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
But just to get a victory like they got last week, it kind of just validates the decision, even though it doesn't mean that Billy Napier is going to go on to have a 6-year run at Florida and be some great success.
I think also, truth be told, I like Scott Strickland. He's a good guy, but I think his reputation definitely is on the line with Billy Napier. I mean, your last 2 coaching hires, basically you continue the burning through of these coaches and, guys that we're still paying, right? Jim McElwain, it's hard to rectify burning through coaches. I mean, Dan Mullen's doing ESPN right now, and he's still getting paid. So it's just like So
and he's very happy at ESPN.
Yeah, he's very happy. He's having a great life. He's hanging out with his kid, watching his kid play high school football and everything. So you have to trust someone to get the party started, to get the process started of rebuilding. And in this day and age, you've got 3 pieces of your college football team. Basically, you have the players that you can recruit and bring in, the ones that you can keep and develop and keep them going in the portal, and the ones you bring in from the portal. Okay, so to me, coaching culture has never been more important than it is now, because right now you have to tie so many brains together and get them sold on playing the way you want them to play. There's a difference in the way you play. You can have a team of great players, or you can have a great team. Okay, team of great players is Ohio State. Okay, the Buckeyes are a team of great players, 4- and 5-star talent as far as the eye can see. Indiana is a great team. Okay, I'm not going to say right now that Mikael Kamara or James Carpenter or any of these guys up front for Indiana, who leads the Big Ten in sacks and leads the Big Ten in tackles for a loss. I'm not going to say that those two guys that I just mentioned stack up on a pro day, player for player, with JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer, for instance.
Sure.
But I know that, these guys will hold the point over and over and over again so that their buddy makes the play. They will set the edge 10 times in a row and not make a tackle so their linebacker has a free run because they are a team. So they're playing better than 5-star talent with 3- and 4-star guys.
Let's just say
that's what we want to create. That's what you have to create first before you can get better. That's what Georgia has. They have a constant pipeline of developing players within their program, which is why on any given day, when they put it together, they can beat your ass.
Let's just say, Kevin Carter, Indiana gets blown out this weekend.
Okay.
I still think they should make the college football playoff. Yourself?
It's a hard sell. Strength of record matters. The strength of schedule matters. You can only play who's on your schedule. I know that, but unfortunately there is a disparity with the teams in the Big Ten, more so than the teams in the SEC. There are more good teams on the same level in the SEC.
Agreed.
But Indiana will have played the bottom 5 teams in the Big Ten. They have no splash wins. They have nothing. Their strength of schedule. So I think when they put basically in the rankings, College Football Playoff Committee puts in Indiana at 5, their 10-0 looks different than Oregon's number 1 10-0. So when they have them behind a 1-loss Penn State team, and I don't have
Penn State's also played like nobody outside Ohio State.
Exactly, but they have a good loss. And so that even trumps Indiana's 10-0 schedule with the 5 worst teams in the division. I mean, your non-conference play, Charlotte, FIU, I mean, you're really grasping at straws. There's no meat on that bone.
So I think Indiana, they could be alive in this game. I think Ohio State's going to win the game, but
I don't think so.
Oh, you think Indiana's winning the game up against Ohio State?
I do.
All right, expand why.
Well, I was kind of on that track talking about just that they're a better team. I mean, like I said, when you look at their front 7, Indiana leads the Big Ten in sacks. Indiana leads the Big Ten in tackles for a loss. They play better up front. They play better team defense. There is an art form to filling the gap, setting the edge, not letting your corner be compromised. All the little things that you do, yards per play, controlling the vertical field position. These are things that, dare I say, a school like Indiana, they mastered first before they could master the great play, right? They have great play from experienced individuals, the guys that I mentioned up front within their front 7. I mean, Mikael Kamara's got 9.5 sacks, okay? JT Tuimoloau's got 5. Okay, I'm saying the production is up everywhere because they're playing as a team. I like their skill position players. I like Elijah Surratt. I like Miles Price, Miles Cooper, Tyson Lawton, Justice Ellison. All those guys are 5th-year senior transfers. And I noticed this early in the season, and I know sometimes we as analysts say things that are kind of above people's understanding or IQ for the game, but I said, watch out for Indiana. They play fast, and they're skill position players. Their skill position players play fast. Why? They have an elevated football IQ. They've been in the same system for 5 years now. You got senior transfers, and he brings in half the staff from James Madison, and next thing you know, you've got this team of players that have been playing together for a while. They're experienced, and they're bought in. And so I think they beat Ohio State because I think the weak link there is quarterback play. I think when you saw Ohio State go in there with all those 5 stars against the likes of Oregon, what was the difference? It was Dylan Gabriel. So in those elite games, it's a quarterback-driven league. Your quarterback, person touches the ball every play, going to have a profound effect on the outcome of the game. I like Curtis Rourke. I trust him more. I trust his decision-making process within what his team can create. They're patient. They don't panic. They'll match you person for person up front. Ohio State isn't going to run away with this, okay? Will Howard isn't that guy. Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith are underutilized. There's no reason that their numbers should resemble that of Elijah Surratt. They look the same. They look damn near interchangeable. And the guys that I mentioned for Ohio State will be playing on Sunday. And you're talking about the talent that's the likes of, Jeremiah Smith's like Larry Fitzgerald or, Julio Jones or whoever you want to put up there that's an instant impact Jamar Chase type player in the NFL. That's what you've got. You've got three of them there, and Mika Ibuka, Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith. And, have those guys less than, 700 yards receiving on the year. I mean, Carnell Tate's got 4 touchdowns. Hadn't caught a touchdown pass in like 4 games. I mean, seeing these guys catch touchdown passes is just like you see the relief on their face. They're just like, oh, man, finally getting touches, finally getting fed. So I think more of the same continues. I think Will Howard is limited. I think the offense is limited because of Will Howard being the quarterback. That's no indictment on him. It's just what you can do and the throws that you can make in the offense and how you process. I mean, Will Howard wouldn't have started for Kansas State this past season. That's why he left, because Avery Johnson is a budding superstar. So if you're not going to start there, how can you go and be the quarterback? And let me say this, $250,000. That's the difference. They could have had Cam Ward.
That's what I was saying.
Just putting it out there.
When the transfer portal opened up and I was projecting all these quarterbacks, I said, Ohio State's going to go get Cam Ward. It makes so much sense. And look, Cam Ward is the team. I know Restrepo's very good at Miami, the receiver, but Cam Ward is their entire team. They live and die based off him.
Right.
And if you put him with this talent at Ohio State, I say this is something that I can't stand Ohio State. I can't stand their coach. That's the biggest problem. So that's where I'll agree with you. Cignetti isn't going to fear. I still think Ohio State's going to win the game. Cignetti doesn't fear anybody.
No.
Ryan Day, even though his team displayed toughness against Penn State, which it helps when you're going up against James Franklin, who can't win a big game to save his life. But Ryan Day, to me, is very fake tough guy. Like, even last year, we beat Notre Dame. Oh, Lou Holtz, my team's tough. Shame on you. Like, that whole stuff is insufferable. And that toughness of Ohio State, it's still out there, and we're going to see if it's going to be up to par coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, well, toughness is one thing, and there are different types of toughness, all right? And this is the point that I'm really trying to drive home with why I trust Indiana so much. When you look at the collective team defense they play with, the collective team offense they play with, it's almost the reason why you have to like and respect and be a fan of a team like BYU, okay? Because you never know where the game-changing play is going to come from. I mean, there are no superstars on BYU's team. I mean, I'm looking at this. They're running back by committee, but that same aspect is true with Indiana. I mean, they're not superstars. They're just guys that make plays. And
let's be real with BYU. I can say this because I'm Jewish. They got a Jewish quarterback. That helps as well.
The BYU Jew, Jake Reslov, he is a dude. I love what he's putting down. But I just think Indiana is a better team. I think all-star teams don't win championships. The best teams do. I mean, look at the Patriots. Look at whoever you want to put out there. I mean, obviously, in college football, you've got the machines like Nick Saban created and what Kirby Smart's doing at Georgia and the programs that just have so much overwhelming talent. But in this case with Ohio State, the person touches the ball every play. I'm telling you, it's a quarterback-driven league, and I think that Indiana is a better team. They will not be scared, okay? And up front within the front seven, Indiana's going to come for Ohio State. They're going to put a lot of pressure on Will Howard. And Will Howard will have to throw the ball over the middle. He will have to attack the middle of the field. I mean, because, talking about arm strength and processing, you're going to throw that deep dig or that deep out, on the opposite hash. Will Howard's not that guy, man. He's not slinging it all over the field like that. So they're going to try to do what they do. They have to manufacture looks to get guys open so that he can throw the ball. I don't see it.
Let's just say if you're wrong and Ohio State wins, how many points can Indiana lose by to still feel safe in terms of making the college football playoff, assuming they don't lose one more game?
I think if it's a one possession game.
Okay.
I think if it comes down to who has the ball last, and it's a tight ball game, and I think Indiana doesn't look totally out of character. They don't go out and commit a bunch of turnovers and have a sloppy game where they just fall apart in the face of a seemingly superior opponent on the road in a tough atmosphere. The stage is too big. I don't think that will be the case. I think Indiana is ready for this. I think they've planned for it. I think their minds are wrapped around it, and they're collectively bought in. I mean, look, I was one of those people on a team with a guy who won the ACC from Duke. and he came into Florida talking a bunch of crap, and he told me, you can either go somewhere else and get beat by us, or you can come here and lead, and win with us. And you, Kevin Carter, will make all the difference in the world. People will follow you here. That's what Steve Spurrier told me. I committed. Jack Jackson, Ellis Johnson, Chris Doering, all these guys come on, and next thing you know, the rest is history. Next thing you know, I'm a senior, and I'm looking at Fred Taylor, Ike Hilliard, Reedale Anthony, Jacquez. I'm looking at first-rounders, and they're all freshmen. I'm looking at Freak, Mike Peterson, all these dudes, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Here we go.
This is what swag and coaching and culture brings you. Curt Cignetti is creating just that in Indiana.
Kevin Carter, I thought he was a Florida Gator. I found out after that segment, though, that he really played football for Indiana with how much he was hyping up the Hoosiers. Signetti have you on the payroll? Jeez Louise, that was impressive.
Well, actually, Trent Green, he sent me a little something under the table, so I go well about Indiana.
One more thing going back to Florida's impressive victory last week up against LSU. There's the other side of that, and it's Brian Kelly with his family. Over at LSU. Yeah. He left Notre Dame because he thought he could go win a national championship at LSU. In theory, I understand it. You've had 3 coaches win national championships since 2000 at LSU, but I just don't think he's ever going to win it all down there.
You've got to recruit. You've got to recruit. You've got to recruit. And the one thing about like Louisiana, that area of the country, like it doesn't matter. You may not have the 4 and 5 stars, but you got dudes from the South that are just as good. like the darndest thing every year with LSU that I could never figure out is that whenever we played them physically, they were just as good as we were. Mm-hmm. Like even when I was back, I was playing for Spurrier in the 90s. I mean, they were just as big, just as fast, just as physical. They just didn't have the plan, or maybe they were one player short or a quarterback short. That isn't the case now. They don't have dudes anymore. They've had guys leave their program in the last couple of years for the turnover, and this year their defense is just really suspect. They're not playing well. I think their team overall is undisciplined. Nussmeier is sometimes erratic. People love him. I mean, all these analysts saying, who you going to take as a quarterback in the SEC to win one big game? And, everybody, McElroy, everybody's saying, we love Nussmeier. Every analyst on every other network is all talking about these guys. And I'm like, what about Jalen Milroe? What about Quinn Ewers? What about the guys who were winning games at these places? And, everybody's high on Nussmeier. Nussmeier's been erratic. He hasn't been consistent. And the team's been inconsistent because of it.
Who's the best team in the SEC, in your opinion?
Has to be Texas. Has to be the most complete team, I think. But the SEC is funny like that. Like Alabama can beat you. Georgia can muster it up, and they've shown that they can, play with elite teams as well on a given day. Don't think Carson Beck is the guy, and obviously their run game.
Good week last week, though.
Good week last week. And
About time.
Unbelievable week last week. He had to have that kind of game because Georgia only ran the ball for the second straight week for less than 100 yards. I mean, that's not the way that Georgia typically wins, and their offensive line is beat up. South Carolina's playing really well now.
I like Beamer, too.
Shane Beamer's a talented young coach. Lenora Sellers is the truth. They got 2 amazing edge rushers, Stewart. So
I think the most dangerous really hard to team is Bama. Mm-hmm. So I've been out on Carson Beck, but he kind of sucked me back in a little bit last week. Ole Miss, I love their defense, and it's weird. The offense is the part that I don't trust the most, but I look at Alabama. They struggled to play complementary ball this year.
Right.
But then in 2 of their biggest games, the Georgia game and then the LSU game, they ran them off the field in the first half. And I just think if they could get what we saw out of Milroe in the first half against Georgia and in the game up against LSU, I just think they have the highest ceiling, especially with a coach like DeBoer.
I think that's also the playing approach, the coaching approach, rather, with Jalen Milroe. I said that when they lost earlier in the season, I said you have to use Jalen Milroe as a weapon in the run game. He'll open everything up for everyone else, and he's unstoppable. And that's kind of been the formula for when they've won big games.
They're
this
kind
year.
of like, I compare them to me at blackjack. Like, I know I'm sitting down at the table for a certain amount of time.
Right.
The highs are really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some lows. The question is, can you stay through the lows? And there's been times this year where they hit the lows, and it's like, whew, how the heck did that happen?
But that's the thing. That's I believe that's coaching. I believe in those games where they lost, even with Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt outplayed them. Okay, so I'm not going to take anything away from them. They outplayed them in every aspect of the game. You go on the road, you're half cocked. You have a bad plan. You don't execute properly. That's what happens. But I think from a coaching standpoint, when you try to get cute, when you say, okay, oh wow, we've got Ryan Williams, we've got these guys, we have dudes, and we can make this, and you draw it up on the X's and O's on the chalkboard, and you don't control vertical field position, you don't control time of possession, you don't control, where drives start, and the little things, the details, the turning the ball over, all those little game metric components, game control metric things that can help you win. And when you don't pay attention to those things against another team, I think that's what happened with them. I think that's more of a coaching philosophy. First year, Kalen DeBoer learning his talent, learning what he can do and can't do. I think by this time of the year, though, everyone knows their best way to win. Okay, and talking about Ole Miss, you brought up Ole Miss. Who's the best team? Ole Miss was my dark horse at the beginning of the season to win the SEC, because I believe the one thing when Ole Miss went out and beat Georgia, they beat Georgia like Georgia used to beat people.
Yeah.
Okay. Run the ball, dominated the line of scrimmage, like 134 yards to 59 respectively in that game. Controlled, dominated time of possession by more than 8 minutes. And the one key component with Ole Miss has been averaging 9 to 10 penalties a game. They had 3 penalties, and they won the turnover battle. Like, if Ole Miss goes out and plays clean football and doesn't have a bunch of pre- and post-snap penalties, they could beat anybody. Like, they're that good. And I know that Jackson Dart, people are sometimes on him, but I like Ole Miss. I really do. But, you might have 5 teams that'll be 10-2 in the SEC by the time it's done. And it's a pretty good discussion as to see who's the best team. That's why, you say who's the best team in the SEC? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good problem.
I don't know.
So when you look last night, the big takeaway from the bracket is that Boise got a bye. BYU was put to 12. At the end of the year, it's one thing to do that now. Do you think the committee, if Boise wins their conference, would still give them a bye if BYU's the conference champ, or do you think they would eventually move BYU up?
That's a good question. I think they want to honor kind of the structure that's there. And, you want to try to keep Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC. You want to kind of give them kind of carte blanche. I mean, because that's, the original part of the original Power 5. I think it's going to come down to strength of schedule.
Okay. And
strength of record. I think if you look at Boise, the way that they've played, the way they've won their games, I mean, they go out and beat teams that that aren't supposed to be on the field with them, and they lost to Oregon by 3 points.
Yeah, they should have won that game.
That is an unbelievable loss for them, and they've boat raced everyone else since. And talk about great players in the country. I mean, Ashton Genty is
stud.
He is the truth. I mean, you basically pick your poison with him, whether you're going to stop him from hitting the home run. If you don't do that, he's just going to bludgeon you for 7.7 yards per carry and end up with about 150 yards by the end of the game, and your defense is going to be worn the blank out, and you're going to lose
150 is actually kind of light for him, I think.
So, I mean, I love everything. I love everything about this Boise State team. I mean, they
quarterback's getting better too.
Quarterback Maddox Madsen is the art form of having such an unbelievable running attack is the quarterback finally settling down into game management mode, and it's a beautiful thing. Maddox Madsen's numbers, he's playing clean games, he's delivering the football, and he's got the freedom because the weight of manufacturing offense isn't solely on his shoulders. I mean, it's an easy play call for an offensive coordinator, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, because you got a guy that's just getting positive yards on those early downs. So I like their team.
Is he
one of the best defenses in the Mountain West? I mean, everything about what they do.
And I like Danielson, too. He's a really good young up-and-coming coach and took over a tough situation last year and ended up winning the conference. Is Genty your Heisman pick right now, or is it Travis Hunter or somebody else?
I think Genty has to be there. I think Travis Hunter has to be there. I think that Shedeur Sanders should be there. No one talks about him. No one talks about, like Shedeur on the level of probably the first quarterback taken in the draft, And, I mean, what he's doing, he can spin it. He makes every throw. They don't run the football. It's when you see them manufacturing points, he's doing it. He's
really their MVP over Travis Hunter.
He's their MVP. Like I said, I don't see how you can keep the two of them out of being finalists in New York. I mean, Cam Ward's had a great season.
Dylan Gabriel,
they have a loss. Dylan Gabriel's got to be there by default because he's the, seemingly QB number one on the best team in college football.
I think those are the 5 guys that get an invite, and that's what I've been saying. To me, only Genty or Hunter right now I think could win the award.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's going to be a fascinating debate because a lot of people, right, as many people say, oh, we don't like Coach Prime and how many haters they have, a lot of people have been hyping up Travis Hunter. And Genty, we all acknowledge he's a good player. And we're on one of our affiliates is on in Boise, KTIK. So we've had Genty on. Like I've been leading kind of the Genty charge a little bit. So I have a megaphone for it. But there's a lot of people that go, oh, yeah, he's good. But who they really play? And they don't even know that they played Oregon this year.
It doesn't really matter. And not to be funny, I think people don't realize how real the transfer portal really is and how a lot of these teams have been mismatched and jumbled up. You got a lot of talent that didn't go to smaller schools per se because they wanted to go to smaller schools. They went because they wanted a chance to play. And I think you have a lot of saturated talent in some of these Mountain West and Conference USA and American and Sun Belt and even in the MAC. You've got a lot of talent that wouldn't necessarily be there if not for the transfer portal. And the teams, from year to year, you change out 20 players, you have a different team. So the level of talent, I say, is debatable who he's playing against, but it doesn't matter who he's playing against. I mean, how good do you think Oregon is?
Yeah.
Okay. He
good.
Yeah, he ran through them like a hot knife through butter. So what do you want? Like what is it? What else does he have to do?
I don't get anyone that still doubts him. If I'm just being honest, it's stupid.
Turn on the film.
Big 12. I know you like BYU. Do you think they're going to continue to win the conference? Because a few weeks ago I turned on Colorado. You talk about the team component. I thought they were a bunch of individuals before the start of the season. Now they're playing 3 phases of football.
They got kind of bit. Obviously, I guess Kansas, that's what you run into in November conference play. You run into the team that's been struggling all season long, and then all of a sudden they finally figure something out. They figure out their best way to win a game, and then they put it together and they beat you. When you look at the numbers from that loss for BYU, it's perplexing. Okay. BYU had double the first downs, won the time of possession by more than 5 minutes, had more than 100 yards total offense, had one more turnover in the game, but you wouldn't think that it would make that big of a difference. I mean, Kansas had less than 300 yards total offense.
Vegas also had BYU laying 2.5, and I looked at that line and I said, BYU's going down this week. This is a sucker line to get everyone to bet BYU.
Yeah,
that's how I kind of look at it.
They always know things. I'm like, so but it happens to everyone. I like BYU. I like the story. I like the quirky nature of the bought-in players, and I like that the greatness that makes them, that enables them to win week in and week out, doesn't come from the same person every week. Sure. And I like that. So I'm my heart is with them. Do I think anyone can beat Colorado at this point? No.
Okay.
So if those two, all things stay the same way they are now and they go to the Big 12 championship game, BYU's not beating Colorado.
And then the last thing I'll ask you, the ACC, I think everyone has already just given it to Miami. I kind of think SMU, that doing this long enough, whenever somebody expects one team to always win, I feel someone else is going to, and SMU just keeps on sitting there and they keep on looking good.
I like SMU, and I think Kevin Jennings is playing out of his mind right now. I like their defense, best defense in the ACC. I like how they play, and the trust factor with Miami is a real issue because you wonder, okay, is Cristobal going to do something or is he going to make a decision? And that's no indictment on him, but it's just like when you have a pattern of things that you've done that can be considered bonehead moves, in crunch moments, times a game. Dan Lanning too, right? He got to be in that category. Had a moment's sigh of relief going for the fake field goal, Oregon, and still winning that game. Defense came up big for him, right? But Miami's that situation, and they played with fire too much and got burned, and Cam couldn't work his magic. For them.
And quite frankly, they should have lost to Virginia Tech and Cal.
Should have lost Virginia Tech. Should have lost to Cal as well. So I think SMU resume-wise and how they've played looks better than Miami. But people need to understand this in terms of there's a difference between the rankings and the bracket. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I tell people like 4 of the top 5 teams are in the Big Ten, right? Doesn't mean that they think those teams are better than everyone else. It's just that everything's kind of centered around that number 1 team and who's going to go and who's going to win and lose the Big Ten championship thing. The same thing with the SEC. Okay, you see, 9 through 12. There's, it's convoluted with 2-loss SEC teams, and they're ranked over 1-loss SMU, and all these people who were kind of waiting before last weekend to kind of move up into the standings. And it's like I saw singular representation in both the ACC and Big 12. And last week, before last week, it was BYU and Miami, right? Their contenders weren't nestled right around them. Mm-hmm. Their contenders are up in the teens. They're SMU, they're Louisville, they're Clemson. They're kind of looming. And it's devised
to eventually shift everybody up after these games play out.
And it's like, okay, so someone lost. Now you can move people up, but only then. Okay, they're really, really centered on what happens in the Big Ten and the SEC. That's going to set the tone for everything else that happens when that bracket gets formed. So in some terms of the ACC championship game's going to be interesting, man. That's going to be interesting. I mean, but I like SMU.
I'm with you.
I really do.
I got 45 seconds left. Okay. Last thing for Kevin Carter. Championship game this year. Who are the 2 teams in it if you had to take a stab at it right now?
Oh, man. Oregon, Bama.
Wow. I had Bama in the championship game before the year started. I have Bama, Georgia. That's what I had.
So that's a safe bet.
Okay. And if you had to go out of the box.
If I had to go out of the box.
I'm saying Ole Miss.
I say Ole Miss.
Okay.
I say Ole Miss was my dark horse in the SEC, and I think on their best day, if they make it in, and they get a first-round game against someone like Penn State or someone, they'll beat the tar out of Penn State. Drew Aller is another conversation. I got to come back to talk about the whole Penn State situation.
I mean, someone in the newsroom is a big Penn State fan. He's
really?
We could have you guys fight each other.
I like Penn State, but I'm sorry, you're in the same position. Your same position as Ohio State. Your quarterback isn't the guy. Okay, the best player on your team's tight end. What do you want? And you got underutilized Julian Fleming, right? Amari Evans. You got dudes back there, man, that Liam Clifford. They're underutilized. You got a better quarterback. Those guys have better numbers. That's all I'm saying.
He's Kevin Carter. Does a great job, CBS Sports. Kevin, appreciate you coming on in.
Anytime.